Is that the vocal warm-up exercise of some sort? Now, let's have a look. So I want to have a look at, first of all, it's Pulse-Chain's birthday. And this is kind of what it feels like to me anyway. Now I could be wrong, but this is me celebrating with myself about Pulse-Chain, right? Oh, look at that. Look at that. Okay, so there's that. Now, the next thing is we've got Pulse-Chain on Ethereum and Pulse-Chain on Pulse-Chain. Now, when people, the Cell Prescians, decided to crash their own crypto on the basis of their logic, which is kind of flawed, because why destroy the thing that, although there's something that's better that you got a free copy of, why destroy the existing thing? I don't know. That's what we did. Well, did I do it? I don't know. I'm trying to reverse the damage that I've seen. I'm not sure if it can be done. We should have a look though. So if I can connect to a wallet of some sort, now, let's have a look. Okay, got actual Pulse on these accounts. Did not realize. Now we've got Ethereum. Now I'm not sure if I can actually have simultaneously it running. I don't think I can. Kind of annoying. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is it's not so much weaknesses of everything, but we're kind of stuck in our kind of a little echo chamber. Now, the echo chamber is growing, don't get me wrong, but it's probably going to be a slow uptrend, slow tick upwards, if at all, because basically what we're seeing from my research is where we stand now is a group of people from every corner of the planet, basically, who freely decided to research and then look into cryptocurrency, specifically some of the ones that are related to Pulse-Chain. And because we're then sort of trapped in this little bubble echo chamber, when new shit gets released, whether that be L2 attempts, whether that be new meme coins with various functions, whether that be other tokens running parallel, like existing on Ethereum and Pulse-Chain or whatever it is, or existing on the Pulse-Chain Solana, not even related to things like HEX, like completely outside of that. It's still kind of the same group of people from what I can tell. And the problem with that is the reduction in, there's only so much money, and it's a game of musical chairs. Now, in an environment where things are pumping through the roof, it's completely different. If you see EHEX pump, HEX pump, Pulse-Chain pump, Pulse-X pump, if we see a God candle, there will be there'll be a lot more liquidity in the market, right? And once that takes place, then you'll see ripe conditions for mass profit taking, but also mass gains, because people will start creating all sorts of stuff and they'll probably make more money on that. Think about the meme coins from pump.tires. A lot of them most likely are going to pump. And when that happens, profits will be taken, maybe get cycled back into other things. I guess you got to try and avoid whatever that round trip. That's a fair analogy. But when everything pumps, things are okay. At the moment, things are not pumping right now. We've seen some really, really good news, but like I said, we're still lacking, in my opinion, based on my research, we're still lacking eyes on this particular cryptocurrency. Now, people have stepped back. Decentralized exchanges have decided to relist. influencers that probably already still spoke about these cryptocurrencies actually covered it and mentioned that, SEC was wrong for XYZ reasons. I'll touch on, while we're talking about that, we'll have a look at this. Now, this was a good pickup from one of the people in the community. Basically, there's a pretty decent stream. I think it's called Viva La Fry. Occasionally, more than occasionally, they'll be like, they chat about this really interesting stuff. If you're into that sort of podcast, it's worth a listen. Now, this one, they talk about, what's kind of a little bit of what took place against Richard Hart versus the SEC. So I'll play this. Hopefully that comes through. I'll put a link in the bottom because it's worth listening to. And I'm not sure if the broader cryptocurrency people, I don't know what you call it, are actually paying attention, or do they actually care? Because maybe they're just looking for that quick 10x whatever.
There was a decision in the HEX case against Richard Hart that the federal district court dismissed, saying they never had personal jurisdiction. I raised that issue on behalf of other people affiliated with that case 2 years ago. Told them that they were going to have serious problems with their case. Represented some people real dirt cheap. It was almost pro bono.
And the jurisdiction in this case is because it's not a security. Like that is the jurisdiction.
Well, that's one aspect, but they didn't even reach that aspect. The court said even if what he was selling was a security, which I disagree with treating all crypto as securities, putting that aside, said he didn't purposely avail himself of any United States jurisdiction. That, in other words, to have personal jurisdiction over you, you've got to do something that directly reaches into that jurisdiction to make it fair for you to be held accountable in that jurisdiction. In other words, what prohibits Russia, say, from saying we hereby indict Robert Barnes for something he did in Tennessee? It's like, unless I purposely availed myself of Russia, Russia has nothing to do with it. It has no authority over me, no personal jurisdiction over me. Our personal jurisdiction laws are the same. If you're not a resident, if you're a resident, there can be general jurisdiction. That means jurisdiction for any case, even if the case doesn't concern things you did in that state, if you are a resident of that state, if you're domiciled there or your business is domiciled there. Richard Hart was not. Richard Hart was a U.S. citizen, but had lived in Finland and elsewhere. So instead, they said, well, he publicly marketed it in ways that was available to Americans. And it's like, hold on a second. By that definition, any global public statement you make is now actionable in the United States. Here he took he didn't have an interactive site.
Yeah.
Clearly, by the way, he had some good legal counsel, how he handled this, right? And it was the marketing never had any interaction. It was here's the credit card link, here's the link, here's that. None of that. It was, here's this, go research it on your own, go make your own decision. And any action that took place wasn't related to his marketing. And so the judge pointed out, Richard Hart, there's no personal jurisdiction of the U.S. government over Richard Hart concerning because this was a specific jurisdiction case. They said that we have specific jurisdiction over what he did here because he purposely availed himself of New York or other U.S. Jurisdictions for the purposes of this behavior that we're saying was illegal. And he was like, no, I didn't. There were public statements I made to the whole world from Finland, but none of them, I never even interacted directly with anybody from the U.S. for the purchase of any of these things that you want to call securities that I'm disputing are securities. And the federal court, to its credit, agreed, said there is no personal jurisdiction. So dismissed the case that the government wasted so much money and time on that case. I mean, I represented some people very cheap because they were clearly harassing low-level influencers who were just pushing crypto if they had any tangential connection to Richard Hart or HEX, when many of them had almost no connection to it at all. And the little connection they did was just speech-related activities. They spent millions of dollars on this case. I was like, this is a garbage case.
All right, so that is a very good pickup. That was worth looking at. I might put a link in the chat, but I'm just trying to pull up my next point. I'm trying to raise to the community if anyone is paying attention. Now, there are others who are far better at this than I, who have more followers, etc., etc. But what I want to point out, like I said, if people hear about that and previously thought maybe that it was a scam of some sort, and now they may have a different opinion of that, which is hopefully good, because then they go and research and they understand that maybe some cryptocurrencies, some more cryptocurrencies now have more, I guess, legal clarity. So there may be less regulatory risk, less legal risk, depending on what jurisdiction they reside in. Now, not just that, if they're looking from outside that jurisdiction, they could probably then analyze and look at and go, oh, that's pretty interesting. That's sort of where the wind is blowing, right? It looked to be more logical and things are making more sense as opposed to whatever was going on before, some garbage cases. Now, the next thing I guess is worth looking at is my argument for parity across two chains with HEX functioning on both chains, taking into account the gas fees, which could be spike a fair bit on Ethereum. We all know that. It could also spike on Pulse Chain, but probably not so hard because like Pulse Chain is only 2 years old. Now, if, for instance, all right, so let's zoom out, have a look at, okay, let's have a look here, this one here. So we've got HEX on Pulse Chain. If you have about $100 worth, probably not the best numbers, but it's a nice even number. Trading it on PulseX, whatever DEX you want to look at, and you have 11,660, right? So ratio here, whatever that is, we've got 37,267.2. So if you then decide which chain am I going to stake on, right? So you have the choice. You always have a choice. You always have free will. It's up to you. Now, if you are on, for instance, I share this tab, hopefully it picks up. I'm not sure. I've never tried this before. So if you are on Ethereum and you have that many HEX, it's $100 worth, right? And you decide to stake out for, it's going to be hard, but we'll say the maximum length, just for argument's sake. Now, automatically you get that longer pays better. Bigger pays better, not so much in this case, but usually when you stake out this length of time, if you're not familiar with this particular function of cryptocurrency on Ethereum, the smart contract called HEX. So divide that by 3. You basically get triple your amount. So say you had a nice even number of 1 HEX, you stake it out 5555, you then end up with 3 HEX at the end of that time. Now, going back, we have this here. We have 37,267.2. Stake it out 555, you get that amount. Now, how much is that currently worth? If we have a look at the current price of HEX on the Pulse chain, this is going to confuse the crap out of me. So you get about, current value up to $300 after the 5555. Now, you would think that staking on Pulse chain would be far superior because of the because the fees achieved, right? So just bear with me though, with not including the fees, not taking into account if Ethereum fixes their shit, or if fees sort of get crazy on Pulse chain. Mind you, most people, if you get in early enough, would have probably a lot of Pulse chain to be able to account for that. So it may not be the end of the world. Just think about how the price of Ethereum in its second year of existence, Solana, BNB, etc., etc. Now, we have this here. So I'm just typing some notes off to the side. You guys can't see. Now, if, for instance, you stake that out on HEX, triple the amount after 15 years, X amount of days, you then get triple the amount. So 1 turns into 3. Now, you would think, well, why would I do that? I can do this on Pulse chain. Pulse chain is far superior and, just completely abandon the Ethereum network. I initially thought that, but then I hadn't actually gone in and checked what it was that I was looking at. So what do I mean by that? So current prices, we have the ratio of around $100 worth of HEX on Pulse chain, which is about 11,660. Again, none of this is financial advice or anything like that. I'm just going through some research that I'm thinking about. Now, there probably could be some flaws in my logic, but I thought I would point it out, record it all, and see how I go. Now, if we then decide to stake on Pulse Chain the amount of 11,660, which is about $100. Fees are cheaper, good. Fees are more expensive on Ethereum, not so good. But we say we go 5555. Now the T-share rate, I can't do that's right. I didn't see the T-share rate over on the other side, but it calculates as of today. At the end of the period, you locking away maximum for maximum gains. Not saying that you should do this, but this is applicable to any length of time. I'm just looking at the effect of, the price difference relative to the ratio of HEX and PHEX. Now, we then end up with $34,980, right? So $34,980 after the X amount of time, you then end up with $300 worth. So what am I? Is that anything there? What? Soon 2K days. Ooh, I wonder what that means. But then, if you've been following this very drawn out process, I'm basically saying if you have any amount of money, not including the fees, and you run HEX on either chain, Ethereum, Pulse Chain, not including fees because fees are kind of important, you end up with almost the exact same result. So then the question is, why is it that Ethereum Pulse Chain is Ethereum Pulse Chain? Why is it that Ethereum HEX is dead or should be considered dead? I actually took a bit of a gamble and decided to flip Pulse Chain HEX, just a small, tiny amount, into EHEX. Ah, yes. That's crazy, man. 2,000 days of flawless operation. And there were many people out there who said this was going to be a scam, rug pull, etc., etc. But there's still people, a whole bunch of us talking about it, and it's almost 2,000 days old. What is it? 1,989. So 5 years in. Pulse Chain is 2 years old. And just remember the price of Ethereum. When that was 2 years old, I wish I was not trading whatever I was doing back then, and paying God knows how much gas. It was like in the cents, but how much percentage of that? Anyway, I won't go there. So what am I trying to point out here to the community, or anyone who's new to the community, who's maybe smarter than people in the community? I'm not sure if they are, because there's a lot of people that have been here for a long time and understand a lot of this stuff, but they would be tainted because they would have seen all-time highs and they would have seen all-time lows, and they're not new into the system. But if someone who's completely new, who's never touched this stuff before, and you're making the decision which one is cheaper, basically they operate exactly the same. The assumption is Pulse Chain will be cheaper in terms of gas, Gwei, Beats versus Ethereum. But if that's not the case, then the hexes that exist on Ethereum and Pulse Chain operate in exactly the same way. It is like, yeah. So I was like, I hadn't thought of that. So the only thing from here is the price appreciation model that we could look at. I have heard, if XYZ happens, price could do XYZ. And then my question is, what will EHEX do? Will that follow? Will it lead? Will Pulse Chain pump? Will Pulse X pump? Will HEX follow? Will it lead? Which came first, chicken or the egg? Now, we'll pause there and go back to my point about the hexes. If, for instance, like I said, you are deciding which hex to choose, to utilize for the way it's designed to be used. Mind you, the yield is extremely low. If you take economic energy of any fraction, of any portion, and apply it to either Ethereum or Pulse Chain, not taking into account fees. So say you're some Ethereum whale, then you may not care about fees so much. You could dump that into Ethereum HEX and it would function the exact same way. Mind you, like I said, yield. I went off having a look at the uni chain and some yield chasing over there. It was hardly worth it. But at the time, HEX was kind of slipping. I think it's actually slipping now. I still use Go Pulse, although I didn't partake for whatever reason in any sacrifice. I did not understand what it was sacrificing for, henceforth I did not participate. Now, we can see here though, on Go Pulse, the current fees. You can put that into your calculation, what you're deciding, and decide, if you have $100, where are you going to deploy? If you have $1,000, we're going to deploy. $10,000, we're going to deploy. $10 million, we're going to deploy. Basically, knowing the fees, but what does EHEX do differently to HEX on Pulse Chain? Is the question. Now, it's like I said, it depends on if you're entering now versus if you saw all-time highs, you might be jaded because the price of EHEX is so low relative to what you have seen it. Then the question is, which one's going to go up harder? Or are they currently set to go up at the exact same rate, regardless? So if you have, with staking, that is, with staking, if you have $100, it goes up to 300. If you have $100, it goes up to 300 on either chain. Okay. Now, Gwei, we kind of covered up with that. We'll check if that's the same. Gwei is up a little bit from what I saw. The other day I saw like sub 1 Gwei. I was like, okay, it's kind of cheap. We have CoinMarketCap. Ethereum's staging a bit of a comeback, I've got to say. Wouldn't be surprised we see 5,000 Ethereum coming up soon. How soon? Not so sure. Would it be years away? I doubt it. Would it be months away? Possibly. Could it be weeks? Not so sure about weeks in terms of less than a month. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now, Bitcoin is doing its thing. I would not doubt that this thing gets, like I said, the 242,000 this cycle, 242 US. This cycle, we're looking at Q3, late Q3, early Q4. From memory, that's when crypto might be popping off just a little bit. We've seen some more negative prices recently, and then that staged a recovery. It did perform better than stocks, funnily enough. Now there's the whole pump going on with the whole people picking up the phone and talking to each other, which would be good if people would do that to communicate, be like, what is going on? And then, so that's helping with the tariff war. Basically, we just have to sit and wait and decide what you think is going to happen. Now, moving on from this, my little analysis on, let's have a look. So I think possibly what I'm about to cover has already taken place because, like I said, we've seen the stabilization of some sort between EHEX and HEX. We see them function exactly the same way. So you have $1 million of Ethereum, and there's multiple things you might think Pulse Chain could do multiple X's over Ethereum. So you have $1 million worth of Ethereum. You then deploy it over a Pulse Chain. Maybe it makes a 10x, 100x, 1000x. So that million becomes whatever that becomes, which is more than, say, like a 2 to 4x on Ethereum. So if someone were to do that, then they'll make more gains if that actually happens. So then what you'd look at would be why? Why would you want to do that? Why would you, try and chase more gains? Probably through greed, probably because that's the smart thing to do economically, probably because if that's your objective, that's logically what you would do. But the weakness is people don't know about it, people haven't heard about it, and there is a community that tends to be sell pressure. Funnily enough. Now, I'm not sure. I might have been raging one time on a stream and said the community is basically sell pressure. I'm not sure if that's been picked up or not. It's true, though. It's sad, but true. Trust me. I've been sitting back watching, going, can you please just stop hitting that sell button, people? I mean, anyway. You gotta make your gains, though, bro. It's like, but don't cheat. It's like fucking cognitive dissonance much. Bunch of, anyway. So this is my lack of understanding here. I am not understanding if, for instance, you can hit EHEX and HEX on Pulse Chain if they can hit parity. Now, staking wise, in terms of current amounts of money you put in, you stake it out for X amount of days, you are getting the exact same rate, right? But if, for instance, the price of Pulse Chain drops, or if the price of Ethereum increases, HEX Ethereum that is, then you would see a different sort of parity, right? So you have a concept of achieving price parity between EHEX on Ethereum and PX on Pulse Chain. Now, through liquidity pools, LPs, easy to understand. Now, I don't understand this bit. There are others out there. I'm yet to hear the argument, or I've already missed it, and people have given up on this. I'm not so sure. Like I said, this doesn't take into account other L2s, doesn't take into account other protocols, other projects, other coins, other whatever. It does take into account, though, where the economic energy is going, because like I said, we're a small community. When new things appear, sometimes it just sort of, it's a game of musical chairs, and when the music stops, you get wrecked, kind of thing. Similarly, I did see a breakdown of what could be taking place with some sacrifices. Price go up, LP gets pulled, it gets matched. Price does appreciate if you're early, if you're able to hit that sell button, if you're able to take profit, good for you. If not, sometimes you ride it to the end. And if you all remember what happened with Pulse PLSD, that was a cool airdrop, but then if you hold to now, not so cool. Not so sure if that even got a. And then something, anyway. Then something else happened, then something else happened, then something else happened. I'm like, okay. Now back to this. Break it down with simple numbers. Now, liquidity pools on decentralized exchanges, DEXs like Uniswap V3 for EX, Ethereum, and PulseX for PX on Pulse Chain are where those tokens are traded, and the liquidity directly affects prices, trading volume, and arbitrage opportunities. Now, using mathematical framework P, possibly beta. I can't even read that. Why can't I read that? P0? I think that's P0. P0 equals D0 divided by S0. I can't even read that. P equals D, P, S, P. Can't even read that. Parity when D0 divided by S equals D, P, S, P, bracket, or parentheses, or whatever. Now, I'll show you how LP impacts demand, D0. Can someone please help with this maths, people? Now, with basic numbers to illustrate this is a simplified explanation, not financial advice, and crypto markets are volatile. So, people come in and just dump on you. There could be benevolent entities which don't, or maybe they've been trying, but then people, the sell pressure continues to keep pressing that sell button because we just can't help it, people. Apparently, I've been sitting here, and I think someone gifted me something, and I had to just sell because I was like dying. I was like in a desert, and someone finally gave me like a tiny half a cup of water. I was like, oh yes. I always put it back into P0, but I was like, after the yield was stripped away and price decreased and yield was stripped around the farms, we're now all sitting around waiting, twiddling our thumbs, chasing our tails, either creating new things which hopefully pump the price, which we've all seen the memes about the sacrifices help the price of Pulse Chain. How many times has it worked, and how many times have the projects actually not failed in terms of price appreciation for eternity, other than what, Bitcoin? So back to this. Now, concepts are in simple terms, because I'm like, Grok, seriously, help me out here. Someone explain this to me, why we all don't decide this is a good thing to hit parity. Because I actually think it's a good thing, but the problem with parity is I didn't think that I was like, well, if one becomes two, and then that two equals more than the one, I'm not sure that's the right way to explain that. But if one becomes two, and then two equals more than the one, it's like two is more than one anyway. But if, for instance, right, the price just gets murdered on one of the twos, then that would be less than the one, so not cool. But then I didn't think there would be a death spiral towards the bottom, making one become worth 0.001. I was like, okay, anyway, maybe the parity wouldn't be such a bad thing. And also, to add now, with prices so low, maybe parity is not a bad thing if it were to go up in tandem. But like I said, fees. So maybe the fees have already been calculated in, and someone's actually done the maths, hence why we are sitting around this area. I'm not so sure. Or maybe this is just purely fluke and a result of a whole bunch of individuals doing their own thing. And that's why we're sitting at these prices. Like, I'm not so sure it's like some mastermind sort of. That's right. That is not so. I'm not so sure that some sort of, some mastermind. Like, for instance, why is the price of Bitcoin currently sitting as it is? Is it because there's a whole bunch of Bitcoiners sitting around going, "We're going to make the price this because we're going to do this"? It's like, I don't know if that's actually what's happening. Now, there are probably some things which could, increase. Well, if people stop selling, it would help as well. But the market is quite large over there in the Bitcoin area. Now, should the markets get that large in the Pulse chain ecosphere, we would then all be looking at each other like that Spider-Man meme, and it'd be like, who's pressing the sell button? And everyone's pointing at each other. I guarantee you. Now, which is not a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing to take profits. But it's like, how much profit do we need, people? How much profit does one need? But if I get $500,000 out of this thing in the future, that would be more than enough to buy. Well, I'll have to do some other calculations. But then, if I get $500,000, buy a nice little apartment, somewhere, nice unit, rent it out. That is my life set for eternity. That'd be sweet, and that would usually take a lifetime to get there. On top of the renting or whatever else is going on, but mortgages, etc. Now, back to this, because I have big dreams, people. I'm not saying, I don't think it's far from over. I think this is just the beginning, and if you're early, we all know the mantra. If we are the people that get rich, the people the ones that get early, etc. Pulse chain is just over 2 years old, relative to other L1s. It's very young. Fees are great. They're cheap. It's functional, and if you do like things like HEX, the price is amazing for fees. Now, price appreciation, on the other hand, not so good because for whatever reason, well, we know why actually. I guess there's low liquidity, and prices are low, making the liquidity even lower. And then if people continue to sell their bags, the sell pressure keep doing the sell pressure thing, then unfortunately, sell pressure, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get low prices. Now, sell pressure is like the biggest troll on everyone. Hey, what's happening? You selling? Yep. Okay, well, this is the result. Don't cry. Do not cry for me, Argentina. Now, back to liquidity. So the concept, I'm wondering if people out there, if I could contribute this, I guess. But if we could have a look at some concepts, some key concepts in simple terms, liquidity pool. So a liquidity pool, an LP, a pool of tokens between HEX and ETH on Uniswap that traders use to swap tokens, more tokens in the pool, lower price swings and slippage, more trading, high demand. Okay, so we know low liquidity, which is what we have over in Pulse Chain. We are seeing, lots of price swings or slippage, what it's known as, if you are a large-ish whale or you're doing multiple trades, constantly murdering the price of your beloved. Now, if there's more trading, high demand, that's good. I guess, especially on PulseX, the burn function, deflationary, etc. But that's kind of different. I guess you could calculate that into the price, but we're not looking at that. We're looking specifically at EHEX and PHEX, right? So demand, I can't even read. It's demand 0, 1. Is that what I'm looking at? And demand P. How people want to buy EHEX or PHEX. Big LPs attract more traders, increasing demand, right? So currently we are seeing, based on that, low LPs across Ethereum and lowish LPs across Pulsechain. Now, that's curious because it's like, well, it's almost implying that it's not artificially low, but it's at a point in time where it is kind of good for the buying. But the problem is, like I said, the marketing is not reaching out beyond our little bubble, beyond our ecosphere. It's slowly reaching out, I would say, but I'm not sure how to do it. Otherwise, I'll be trying. I guess people tried to educate all of this early on in the sell pressure community, but sell pressure decided that sell pressure was the maximum objective, the best objective, the best outcome. So it's kind of hard to, when everything, when you're a hammer and everything looks like it, everything looks like a nail, so saying, goes. Now, if you have that, right? So we have low liquidity. Doesn't look like it's going to attract many people, especially because people outside the ecosphere looking at this, looking in, going, what the fuck is that? We're not touching that. But now we've got some regulatory clarity, and there are some people with large followings talking about this. And then there's actually some people who really, really understand this shit, as I played the part before from Viva Fry, the stream from his podcast there. I think it's a Rumble Viva Fry. And the guest that he frequently has on talking about, specifically the Richard case in the SEC and reasons why, SEC lost. They actually lost. Like it was a loss. Like regulatory clarity is good, has been set, precedent has been set, if you ask me. Not a lawyer, maybe don't. But if, for instance, Pulsechain, isn't that a fork, like a clone of Ethereum? Anyway, what does that mean? Anyway, so moving on. So circulating supply. Tokens available for trade, not staked. So take out of the equation or the tokens that are staked because it's been burnt. Now, staking locks tokens, reducing supply, which can raise prices. Now, we did see previously, people may have forgotten about this, the OA actually burning a lot of HEX that it held, I guess, I don't know. And basically that is gone. It is gone from the market. So all that's left is what sell pressure holds in its little bitty baby hands, right? And what is sell pressure doing in low liquidity environment? They keep selling and they keep selling and selling and selling. And then they all get excited when some big god whale comes in and buys up their stuff. And so what they do, they sell more. And then we wonder, we all sit and scratch our head and smoke our cigarettes and drink our whiskey and go, why is the price going down? I don't know. I don't fucking care. I've got so much HEX. I don't care. And that's what people would argue, but I don't think that's what's happening personally. I think that people with a whole lot of HEX and a whole lot of like the big old wallets don't really care so much about. They're probably chilling on the back on the sidelines going, fuck this. I don't care. I'm going to sell this shit because that's what people do. And when they do that, aka be sell pressure, we see lower prices. Now, at some point in time, one of two things usually happens. Sellers run out, or they feel uncomfortable about selling more because they start thinking, shit, I need some more of this because, it's getting really cheap now. Or two, prices, something marketing outreach enrages people and they get their FOMO and they try and purchase a whole lot of HEX Pulsechain before other people, hence the FOMO terminology. And then sell pressure keeps doing its thing, but it's not sell pressure anymore because, they still remain sell pressure, but if the buy pressure outweighs the sell pressure, price go up, right? And if sell pressure keeps selling and then they get lower, eventually they're going to have enough. So they could get enough crypto or money or whatever it is. They get enough properties or fucking get their money sorted. So they don't need to sell pressure anymore, which would be good, which would be great. And then that way, it might allow other people to then become sell pressure. It's a stop being this. So everyone's like, again, like Spider-Man pointing to the other person, stop being sell pressure, so I can be sell pressure. Because honestly, that's what I'm doing. I'm going, look, if you guys could stop sell pressuring and we see this, ride this thing up to $100, maybe $33 on Ethereum, that would be good, because then I could get my fun and have a little bit of sell pressure, So I'm not sure. I know the staking mechanism will work because people that they cannot be sell pressure until XYZ point, which is why HEX is so easy on chain to see who is selling what and what is going on. Unless of course they like move between and create burner wallets, and they make it appear as if it's like some evil entity dumping. It's like that could just be someone's side wallet, just because they have to sell and they don't want to have it traced to them in the community, because then people go, oh, well, that's connected to that, that's connected to that, I was doing that, oh wow. It's like, hang on, that's not they are celebration. No, anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah. All right. And then parity. Okay. So this is what I really want to know. If someone can clarify this for me in the community, I would love that. So if E hex price and P hex price, maybe that's an E, like PE, I'm not sure. But anyway, low P. Now, so since total supply is the same one-to-one bridge, right? So we know that. Parity needs equal demand. Demand E equals demand P. So, and similar circulating supply. So SE equals SP. So, and then arbitrage traders buy the cheaper token, e.g. HEX, and sell the price on one PHEX to profit, pushing prices together. LPs need enough liquidity for this to work. So I'm guessing there is not enough liquidity on. So we either need, so this is where my maths fails me. We either need the same amount of liquidity across, what would it be? Would it be EHEX and Ethereum, and on Ethereum side, and then on Pulse Chain side, PHEX, which is HEX, and Pulse Chain, say the value needs to be, let's say, 10 million each side. Will that help push the price together? And is it because we're seeing less liquidity on Uniswap, for instance, or whatever, CalSwap or whatever exchange has a lot of liquidity for EHEX or MetaMask or whatever they use? Is that the reason why we're seeing these price differences? Let's have a look, people. Now, I think that could be a very, very simplified way of explaining that. I'm not sure if that's even correct, because if that is correct, the other thing could be that the other thing it could be is it needs 3 times more on HEX Ethereum side to then account for arbitrage, not including fees. But supply is locked up because the stakes took place on both sides of the chain, Ethereum and Pulse Chain. And basically the supply should be very similar, unless, of course, say someone's just being not sell pressure, but say they're removing all their EHEX and they're bridging it over. But then it's still locked away, so supply should be the same if it's being actively traded, say on Pulse X between EX and HEX. Not so sure that's the one that will affect it as much as the EHEX pair and Ethereum pair on Uniswap and people taking it out. Anyway, let us have a look if I can find LP for HEX and Ethereum. Now this is like me just drafting some shit here. I'm actually not that good at LP research, but I'm thinking if I can find the simple figure of HEX, not on Polygon Network, but of HEX on Ethereum, if we can see how much liquidity there is, there's total value locked in LP of 1.2 million, according to this here. HEX token, HEX on Ethereum, we are seeing, for instance, 1.2 million locked. Fees are XYZ, and this is what's taking place. Let's have a look at the pools, what we can see. Okay, well, this is a reasonable breakdown. Now, so according to Grok, right? According to Grok, if we could see, now it could be, like I said, my maths isn't the best, but if we can see a total value locked on the DEX, such as Uniswap, between EHEX and Ethereum of 1.2 million, and if we see the same amount locked on Pulse X between PHEX, which is HEX over there, and Pulse Chain, then in theory, you should see a similar price because arbitrage will do its thing. But let's have a look in real time what's actually taking place. Now, Pulse X, how do I even look up that one there? And then we shall go to farm, we shall go to liquidity. Then we should have a look at find other LP tokens between, say, HEX and Pulse Chain is what we're talking about. Don't have, okay, let's click on info, pools. It's been a while since I used this, people. It's been a while since I built on this computer. Okay. HEX and wrapped pulse. Okay, this could be, is this right? Okay, so so if my brain is working somewhat correctly, and we share, let's pair them up. I'll flick them back and forth. It's kind of annoying, but if we have this here, and okay, let's have a look. I haven't done this before. Let's do it live on stream. How better than to make a fool of oneself and do it live on stream to prove your incompetence? All right. Now, 3.13 million of liquidity between HEX on Pulse Chain and HEX on wrapped Pulse, which is Pulse Chain, one for one. The wrapping process, we understand. Sometimes you can save yourself if you fees. Remember, if you have wrapped Ethereum, everyone. So there's 3.13 million. Now, I should put that on the correct area, which I'm looking at now. Over on Ethereum side, say, Uniswap. I don't know if you guys like Uniswap or hate Uniswap, whatever's going on. But apparently, there's 1.2 million locked. Now, I'm not so sure if there is a way to pull up all the data, running some sort of something that would find all of the liquidity everywhere, because there might be little tiny pools over here of like $10,000, $100,000, $1 million spread out. But if we are using the, I don't know, is it the mainstream DEX? Possibly. But if you're using this particular, I don't know, because there's a whole lot of DEXs, man. There's a 1 inch Cal swap, and there's like I don't know where MetaMask calls its data from. But let's just pretend that there is, let's just pretend that's all of the pools in all of existence on between EHEX, Ethereum, and PHEX Pulse Chain. Now, to me, not fully understanding the maths here, but if you have 1.2 million EHEX LP and you have 3.13 million PHEX wrap pulse, those numbers themselves sounds about like 1/3. Now, if you go over to Pulse X, for instance, and we're looking at the ratio, what is actually taking place, maybe there's some bots doing this automatically, like AI is pretty good now. It can calculate a whole lot quicker than I can. But say you have 10,000, it's a nice even number, 10,000 PHEX, which is HEX, about 33,000 EHEX. So maybe that is the LP taking place. So what am I getting at here? In my little feeble brain, my not understanding LP, my not understanding how anything works, how Hart's law works, how not having all of the data points, not having every exchange in existence, not having all the LP across every single DEX on Pulse Chain or every DEX on Ethereum. basically based on these two little minuscule data points that I've scraped and decided to use as examples, as samples, sorry, you could say that if the LP was increased over on Ethereum by threefold, well, it's 1/3 of what it needs to be at three of three, or at one. if there is then 3.13 million liquidity provided into HEX, I ask you, would that sell pressure, would that not equal a price appreciation in? Would that not allow for price appreciation over on HEX to make it hit parity? Or again, this maybe I'm not understanding. Maybe if 3.13 million was on HEX and 3.13 was on PHEX, like divided between Pulse and Ethereum, would that then drag them towards each other? So that would make the price of Pulse chain come down, push the price of HEX up. That's probably what would happen. But yeah, again, not an expert in liquidity, but if we as a sell pressure community wanted to see higher HEX, one could argue that providing that's a big ask. It's like, oh yeah, just who's gonna spare a couple million just lying around willing to try and partake in such an experiment? What if it doesn't happen? And it's like you do it and it just then you lose out a whole lot of. Because if you're providing LP between HEX and Ethereum, and then the price goes up, you would be gaining. You'd be losing HEX and then gaining Ethereum, which may not be bad. Then the problem is if price appreciation is taking place in Ethereum because Ethereum is connected to. Okay. See, there's other variables that may not be incorporated into this. But yeah, that's my little thought experiment. Let me know what you all guys think about that, or if anyone agrees, disagrees, if that's absolute garbage what I just said, or if the concept does kind of make sense. Basically, that if okay, so let's do some basic numbers. So basic numbers for LP, right? Let's have a continue on this here. Basic numbers. Let's use simple hypothetical numbers to show how LP is a Uniswap v3 EX ETH Pulse X PX Pulse can achieve parity. I'll assume current prices and LP based on recent data just to show you the effect. Okay, this should be good. EX price 0.002, approximate LP size. Let's have a look. 500,000. Staked 30% of EX circulating. Okay, according to this, and then PX. The price, the LP, the price is higher. The LP is also 1 million. I guess as price increases, LP increases also. Which takes into different, okay. And then basically we see that there, 1 million in LP, trading volume slightly higher. Gas is cheaper, staked is different. Now the price gap here says is 3 cents and 2 cents, or 0.03, 0.02, because DP is greater than DE and SP is less than SE, right? So where have we seen that before? Now, PX low fees and bigger LP attract more traders. Okay, that's in theory that's good, but outside of the bubble, I'm not so sure that's actually taking place yet. Most likely people will see mad insane appreciation, then that will take place, and then at which point in time I'm not so sure like you want to be still contributing to Ethereum's fees by participating in the LP, unless you really like HEX and you don't want to see cheap HEX on any chain, right? I don't know. But then we have this here, more PHEX is staked, reducing supply. Okay, so we know the amount of staking is. I'm not so sure any more staking from the OA can take place. We do know how to keep track or see when large stakes end, though, and what those wallets are likely to do. Whether they're going to provide, they're going to sell their PHEX and then bridge it over to Ethereum, make some LP there to help prop up the price of EX. Whether they want to do that or not, but they might have sold the EX, but then you would assume they'll have stakes coming over, and it would be beneficial to do so. Maybe if you want to be playing the LP game, and if you don't want to be taking profits, because maybe just the sell pressure, 100% sell pressure, like team sell pressure, yeah, and you just dump that shit and then it's gone. Don't worry about it. But if there are people out there interested in this, I'm not sure if this will work. I'm curious. What would I do if I had large amounts of HEX? Now, so the goal at parity, right? So we see D greater than P, DP greater than DE, SP greater than SE. So demand greater for pulse chain, supply is less pulse chain. Now, to get the parity, it's saying in this example here that I'm reading off here, to get the parity of PE equals PP, low PP, now equals 0.0025. So the price of the price of EHEX in this example is to increase, and the price of, I'm not sure you want this, the price of PHEX to decrease. So that's what's it called? For every action, there's equal opposite reaction. Something physics. Something very famous said that. Now, very smart. Now, and we need then, DE to equal DP and SE to equal SP. So LPs are then key to boosting EHEX demand. Now, and enabling arbitrage. Now, I don't know how to take advantage of the arbitrage, but what I'm understanding so far, someone out there knows how to do this. It just feels from my brain is saying, if we as a sell pressure community, we all decided that we want to see EHEX hit parity, then we would see it hit parity, because we basically said when the price of EHEX, we didn't like EHEX anymore for some reason, and everyone pulled the LP, not because of the upcoming fork in which you lose your LP, but because you wanted to see parity. Well, I got sidetracked there because my brain just like flashed. It was like, do you know that when do you know that when everyone pulled the LP, I guess for the upcoming fork, that would have driven the price even lower, but the price is already pretty low. But yeah, anyway. So, but in this example, going back to this, we want to see 0.025 across both Pulse Chain Hex and Ethereum Hex. So here's a step-by-step what would take place. Here is the how-to guide based on these dumpers. And doing it in real life is a whole lot different. You could maybe do it on a test. I don't know. You'd have to have a whole lot of hex over there to do it. But you could pull liquidity on the testnet and see what happens, and increase liquidity on testnet and see what. Anyway, current LP. So EX, we know what that is. We want to increase the LP to. We need to grow the LP to 2 million from 500,000. So we need, example, 500 million EHEX and 200 ETH. And then here's how it would take place, right? The community ads, or the sell pressure would add, people who hold HEX on Ethereum in large-ish quantities that isn't locked away and hasn't burnt all their shit, because if arguably you could say, well, why can't the OA do this? It's like, well, the OA burnt all its shit and it is no longer in control of the LP positions. I could be incorrect, but that's from best my knowledge, that would be vaguely correct on Ethereum and Pulse Chain. It's burnt with it. There's no one, So the community would need to add that extra amount. So Hexkins, Hexkins pool funds incentivized with 5% APY rewards. I'm not even sure what the APY is on. Anyway, example, that amount of Hex at 750K, that amount of ETH, that's a whole lot of ETH, right? It's not, well, for me, that's a whole lot of ETH. There's other people, maybe it's chump change, but if someone did that, so here's an idea, you fuckers. How about when you have a sacrifice, you sacrifice for the parity of fucking EHEX? that would be pretty hard, because then you'd be like, I don't even go there. Because then you'd be like, oh yeah, someone would have a control of this big amount of fucking LP, and then if they decide to pull it would be like everyone would be whinging and crying, and I could just see it happening. You need to have like some trustless way of doing it. Now, back to my just try to achieve parity. So trying to achieve parity, you would have this amount. Volume rises to that amount, because double as big LP attracts traders, apparently. So I don't know if that's true. May not happen. Slippage drops a little bit on $10,000 trades in this example, boosting demand for ETH. Mind you, Ethereum prices will also affect, because do we really think hexagons or post-chainicans or whatever it is, are we really going to be going over to Ethereum when we have cheaper, faster over pulse chain? Except for the people trying to achieve this. But I don't know, like maybe it's a matter of many hands make light work, and everyone's like, okay, I want to take like XML and chuck some LP over here. But then it's like, why would anyone do that? Unless they just don't want to see cheap hex anywhere. Pretty solid argument, if you ask me. Now, anyway, so impact price, DE doubles, pushing PE from 0.002 to 0.0022, closer to PX. So basically, when we pulled all the LP on Pulse Chain, because APY became less attractive, we effectively lowered the price of PX in my mind based on this. Now, by doing so, to me, we've made it easier to try and achieve that parity across EX and PX, not including fees. Now, so then it says here, continuing on, add EX, PX, LP on Pulse X. So no current major EX, PX pool. So arbitrage relies on bridge costing $10 to $50. Create $1 million EX, PX pool on Pulse X, and then parity. So people would need to provide that. I thought there was pools over there. At one stage, I'm pretty sure that pair was actually incentivized. I'm not so sure it is now. Let's have a look. Hex and Hex. So we'll have a quick look over here. Pulse X. This is my homework for the week, people. Let's have a look. Let's see more. Where's Hex? Why can't I see Hex and Hex? There is that much shit on here that's low. I see it. Anyway, there has to be a fucking pool between Hex and EX. How else am I trading it? I would have thought it'd be in top 10. Apparently it's not there anymore. Maybe because the incentivization is gone, people are not doing this. Just curious. Maybe not. Okay. So if you were to create a pool of EX, PX, you'd be basically saying that you think EX, you'd be voting that in your mind that EX is going to increase, because why else would you do it? Double check that statement. But yeah, that's fascinating. All right. So moving on. So we have that there. So EX, we need more EX, more ETH pools on something like a Uniswap to increase the price of EX. Now, that talks about pools, and there may need to be a pool that exists on Pulse Chain to facilitate the arbitrage on between EX and PX. Because eventually, in my mind, it would be nice to see EX equaling PX, as long as it's not cheap anyway. Now, so no current major pool. So that would say, okay, so someone would create a pool like that for whatever reason. Maybe they have lots of, it would have to be community driven, because, like I said, or hexagon driven, because basically no one is who's going to call the OA and be like, yo, OA, do this. Like, all this shit's burnt and gone. So it's completely up to the Hexkins. So we are literally community run and driven. Like this is like volunteer work at this point in time, people. Not even volunteer work. It's like not even recognized. So I don't even know what you call it. For love. So that there result arbitrage directly, so people take advantage of that. Arbitrage pushes PE up to 0.024 and P down to 0.26. So we see the slow sort of mechanical the flow taking place, right? We see LP increase, we see arbitrage added on pulse X, things that allow for arbitrage to exist to increase the price of EX and decrease the price of PX. Now, okay, people might be like, "Oh, why do you want to decrease the price of PX?" That's a good point, but I'm just saying, if, for instance, the price get God Candle and Hex moons, pulse X moons, EX moons at 1/3 of the rate of the Hex, and you want EX to moon with PX for whatever reason, maybe you've got a lot of EX over there, then someone would need to be coming up with do these calculations in real time. How much, so far I can see it's like a whole lot of, it's like a $4 million job thus far, and US, and it would have to actually work, and you'd be going against sell pressure, because we all know what sell pressure does. Now, then here, skimming over, it says lower e-gas, like the fees, explains how that could affect the price, basically. Match P hex staking. So this is an interesting one too. So not going over the fees, because you can read that yourself. Pause, screenshot, whatever. Now, match P hex staking. So current amounts. Well, for a large portion, a very large portion, I'm pretty sure the OA staked identical across both chains. So that is matched. The only thing that would be left is if large players left on chain are still doing the same thing across on Ethereum, or if they're when the stakes end, if they're pulling it out from there. I guess, what is that doing? They're selling, affecting supply. If they affect supply, and then maybe price go down based on the equilibrium point of view. Now, but if they were then also providing liquidity when there wasn't liquidity, that could then help, in theory, and this theory, help with the price go up of EX, which is interesting, until it hits parity. And then once it hits parity, it has to maintain parity, it has to maintain its peg, and then we exist in a realm where we don't see any cheap hex on any chain. It just takes a fuck ton of money. Now, boost sentiment for EX. Again, need to make EX great again. Goal, equalize sentiment to balance the demand, EX, demand, PX. So let's promote EX. Trade EX and Arbitrum, same as PX. Post. Okay, hang on. What? How do we trade EX and Arbitrum? Can you provide OP over there? Maybe. Interesting. All right. So that is some very interesting thought experiments to go over. Now, I'm not sure if anyone else is aware of this, if anyone else cares about this, or actually anyone else wants to see parity achieved, because in the final numbers, it's saying parity achieved in this scenario. LP 2 million EX in Ethereum on Uniswap V3 Arbitrum. How did it get Arbitrum? And then volume increases, staked decreases, or matching pulse chain, and price has increased. And over on PX side, there has been a pool that's created, which is the PHEX and the EX of X amount. DP was stabilizes because of it. Staking, it remains unchanged, the same on both chains, and the price unfortunately decreases but increases on EX. So in that scenario, it's taking a lot of money from some good-hearted person out there to achieve this, but then you see loss of PHEX price. I'm not sure you want that, because hex on pole chain is the actual hex. But if you don't want cheap hex anywhere, then you have to it takes money to make money, right? So I'm not sure if this is helping anyone. I'm not sure if anyone can understand this and point out any flaws. But to me, it says here, why LPs matter. Bigger LPs in doubles trading increases, DE, reduces slippage and attracts traders, arbitrage, So I think for a lot of time, though, we have seen a lot of fairly large amounts of people trading on MetaMask. It's like the top 5 traded on one of the tokens. So there's a lot of people with EX. I'm not sure if they're dumping, selling, providing LP. Not sure what they're doing. Again, not sure what their position is because they might have other structure set up, or God knows what their jurisdiction or tax implications, legal implications are, whatever. Not any of those things. Don't listen to me. But it would be good to see that happen. Like some big giant stake ends. They then have to sell a shit ton of it, or in chunks to get lots of Ethereum to create LP to match up with the LP over on Pulse Chain, and then maybe they're going to bridge in some, make some pools, like get some fees from pools on Pulse X with cheaper gas, but then get some fees from Ethereum, but with more expensive gas, which kind of sucks. But maybe that's possibly what could happen in the future if someone understands this, if this even makes sense, if this is even possible. But yeah, I mean, challenges. This is probably going to be a good part. Challenges. Gas fees into Arbitrum or Pectra mid. Well, I think Pectra already took place. Don't really care, but it was successful. Apparently, Ethereum's still running, so that's good. So yeah, kind of sucks with the exiting LP positions, especially release it. Well, not sure. Yeah, how calculates, but yeah, community effort. Adding 1.5 billion to Uniswap needs Hexkin coordination. Coordination, people. God forbid coordination. Oof. Now, Pulse X bias, pre-hex fees keep, people like, cheaper fees. That's why Pulse Chain exists. But in conclusion, to achieve EHEX PX parity in this example at 0.0025, which current price is actually, which current price? I like the Pulse Chain upgrade. I should be using that. I don't know if anyone out there is hearing this, if anyone cares, but that is the way you can achieve parity. Now, whether or not you want to achieve parity, like I said, do you need to achieve parity? Do you want to sacrifice the price of HEX on Pulse Chain to achieve parity? Do you want to sacrifice your funds for that? I don't know. But, like I said, stepping back from the parity, that would be like Hexkin actual, like, people who hold Hex and Ethereum, like I guess OG Hexkins would care about that. If you don't care about that so much, Hex operates exactly the same way on Pulse Chain as it does Ethereum, except for the gas fees. You can take $1 million, $10 million and stake it over and burn it over on Ethereum, burn it over on Pulse Chain. And at the end of 30 days, 90 days, 180 days, a year, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 15 years, you'll get the exact same yield, funnily enough, or very close to. The only difference will be the gas fee. So in that argument, Pulse Chain wins. But if, like I said, if the Pectra update maintains and Ethereum keeps getting better and better, maybe now they've got some competition with Pulse Chain, even though Pulse Chain, Pulse X, and HEX has legal clarity and certainty, which is a very huge positive. So it's like, why would you go over Ethereum? But if you have a whole lot of EHEX and you want it to increase in value, maybe have a look at doing that. If you don't, then, I guess the other alternative from that could be also that you just don't care and you want EHEX to die and burn to the ground, so you pull all liquidity, so there's no liquidity, and then that will simply make it may not have any effect at all on Pulse Chain. Arbitrage, like you wouldn't be touching it. Yeah. So unfortunately, you can't just murder the price of EX and send the price of like Pulse Hex through the moon, because that'd be kind of interesting to see if that was the case. Someone just like messing with the LP, like pushing one up, pushing the other up, XYZ, whatever. But yeah, that's about it. That was very interesting. I actually think I learned something from that. I'm impressed with my own research. I'll give myself a pat on the back. Well done. That was good. That's basically how you achieve parity on, Pulse chain hex and EHEX. Arguably, let's have a look. Then the question is, if that can be done so easily across, if that could be done on an ERC20 and a PRC20, the theory would be that you could do it with any ERC20 and any PRC20, which I'm going to have a brief look at. So let's have a look. But see, the problem with this is the die conundrum. Maybe Maker. Let's have a look at Maker, right? Let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at LP. So there's total value locked on Ethereum of 56 million. Now, I'm not so sure. I know Peter had basically some sort of inflation bug, although someone murdered it or stopped it from taking place, which is good. Let's have a look at Make. Oh my God. Am I even going to find the fucking thing? There's that much shit over here. Maker PRC20 copy. Now, I'm not sure if it's got the logo. Make Pulse. Maybe it's that. And the problem is because people have made like copies and clones. It's just fucked. Is the contract address? I don't even know, man. Assuming big assumption here, big assumption. Assuming this is the correct Maker PRC20, which it may be, but I'm not so sure because it hasn't have the PRC20 logo. If we go Pulse, maybe forked. Okay, here we go. So I guess this is useful. If we go show all coins from forked, go Pulse, PZ low. What happened to that thing? Now, my God, why people? Why do you make? Okay. So you can find right. You can find the actual contract address of the PRC20. So the only reason I'm thinking Maker is because people are obsessing over like Peter, and they probably don't even. Anyway, you need Maker from memory to create die, right? And so I'm like, if die is fucked and wrecked for whatever reason, inflationary reasons, I guess you could call it. Maybe you could look at Maker. So in this instance, if this is Maker and Pulse chain, which I'm pretty sure is the PRC20, so you can pull up that contract address, etc., which is useful. I'm gonna lie, this is useful. I'm gonna completely abandon Go Pulse, but now people are probably all aware of this. There's people out there, LP experts, whatever. So there is liquidity of 4.8k, right? So if, for instance, you want to have parity of, that would be an absolute vampire attack on Ethereum. So if you want P Maker on Pulse chain to be worth a fraction, like a lot more, and then you want the Ethereum, how can that work? Because then it could affect the parity of DAI. Let's just pretend it doesn't affect the parity of DAI. Let's just pretend that Maker will do its thing and rebalance. Let's just pretend we don't worry about the inflation bug, but we're just not going to look at DAI and make it try and hit parity. Let's just look at P Maker in isolation, and we will say that the current liquidity is 4.8 and the price is $5.58. Now, if you wanted to get Maker to get anywhere near 1,765, which it won't, because as we saw in the other example, it'll pull down the price of Maker and pull up the price of Maker. So maybe you get something at 800, 900. So you get $900 you get Maker to $900 on Ethereum. Then you get Maker $900 on Pulse Chain. You would want to inject. You only want to inject 56 million into Pulse Chain, right? So someone comes in and buys $56 million. I'm just thinking before I speak here. Is that possible? Okay, so if you want Maker to increase on Pulse Chain, you need to inject about 57 million, not including pools, because you probably have to create some pools between the two of them, between P-Maker and E-Maker. As we saw with the Ethereum HEX, and Pulse Chain HEX was like $1 million worth of on Pulse X, for example. If you wanted to achieve something like that, you would need about 56, maybe 60 million, give or take, to create such an LP, assuming it doesn't get destroyed along the way. That would be fascinating to see. So my logic says that's possible. It needs a whole lot of money though. And do you really want to destroy the price of your Maker over on Ethereum? If you got like all the Maker though over Pulse Chain, and you're looking like, if you had, how much Maker supply is there? Can you see this? Can we see the supply? That can't be right. So, yeah, okay. What's the supply of? I guess you can divide that by that, can't you? Where's that one? Find some shit. Like, that can't be right. 31. So 32,000 Maker in existence across that. And then the supply over. What the fuck is that? What? The supply is just wrecked. Maybe that's interesting. Because remember when we want for parity, you want DE equal PP and SE equal SP. So I'm not so sure. See, I'm not good with numbers. I can't do those numbers on top of my head. I would look at HEX achieving parity with PX. Maker with that much supply, I'm not so sure what it would do, because the supply varies a little bit. So therefore, it would make it harder to hit parity. With huge amounts of Pulse Chain. But then you could do the same calculation with Pulse Chain and even Ethereum, because it's like, what, 10,000 times X cheaper, right? So supply. Well, you'd see like maybe $10,000 Ethereum. That's interesting. Interesting food for thought. I will wrap it up here. let everyone mull that over themselves and come to the conclusion why it might be easier to get a parity between EX, PX given on supply and demand and LPs versus something like Maker. Because looking at that, there's something wrong with that supply, if you ask me. Maybe it's been minted into infinity already, so maybe it's already been wrecked for everyone. Let's have a look. What's another example? See, it's hard because you can probably do the same for other ones and just decide, is it possible? What do you think? Run the numbers, etc., etc. Like, would it absolutely vampire attack the Ethereum side if the supply is just too much? But yeah. Who knows? Or maybe it's been put like that for a reason. I'm not sure what the reason would be. Maybe we see some insane numbers on Pulse Chain, which is actually performing okay at the moment. Yeah, I think I'll wrap up. That should be enough. Thank you for everyone tuning in. I think I've actually learned something from this. I'm not so sure if people want this. So that's the thing. Like, do we want no cheap X anyway, or do we want expensive Pulse Chain Hex only? I'm not so sure. I still think it would make sense. My closing argument is, to me, it makes sense to, closing argument. God green candle common, I would imagine. And if I can imagine it, it's probably going to happen. And if it does happen, that'd be cool. And I would like it. And I would probably not care about this as much. But at the moment, if I'm looking purely at, I have no idea. The logic's flawed there because I have no idea if the God candle is coming. Say it does come. That'd be kind of cool. If the God candle does come, would I then go out of my way to place LP? Probably wouldn't have enough. But would I have enough to place LP to try and hit parity? I don't know. Would I want to? I think it would be cool for a community as a whole. Like, I would love to see, like I said, if we see HEX at $100 on Pulse Chain and HEX on Ethereum at $33, I would be pretty happy with that. Like, even $1 HEX on Pulse Chain and 33-cent HEX on Ethereum HEX, that'd be pretty. I'll be happy with that. But if you want to get mad greedy and be like, oh, I want to hit parity because ETH fees maybe aren't so bad, maybe you could look at doing something. But at the moment, like I said, maybe there's a consensus where 130 is okay. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, looks like it's possible. Whether or not it should be done, I don't know. But yeah, that's the lesson on LPs as I know it. Interesting, though. Interesting. I'll look at Maker like that. Interesting. All right, that's about it, people. Thank you for tuning in. If you got anything from that, it would be go listen to go and listen to that particular segment of this here. That's probably the best thing you're going to get out of this particular stream, right? Because the rest is just me being Loonberg conspiracy theory and trying to apply mathematics to EHEX and PX, which I think is possible, but there's probably something I'm missing. I'm not sure what it is. And I would hate for someone to go out there, deploy large amounts of money, and then for them to get like perma-wrecked by MEV bots or some shit. So as it is, that's what I think could happen. Do I have the ability, the means to do it? No. So therefore, if I was actually going out and doing this and it worked, I would be fucking so happy. I'm not so sure I'd tell people, but I'll be pretty happy if that happened. Whether or not it should happen, I'm not so sure. Because do you really want you want parity, don't you? You want expensive hex everywhere, or do you want like real expensive Pulse Chain hex and then somewhat expensive EX, and then be like, if you buy the Pulse Chain hex, but like I said, About $1,000 now, 10,000, 100,000. You stake it on either chain, it's the same shit, but you might get less or more, depending on price appreciation. Depends on what you might think you might need in the future. So, all right, that is about it. I will close out now. I think someone else is actually streaming, which is good for a change. All right, cool. All right. Yeah. All right. Just closing. All right. Closing. Signing out. Catch us later. Like I said, $1 hex on Pulse chain, 33% hex on Ethereum. I'm not crying. $100 hex on Pulse chain, $33 on Ethereum. I'm not crying. But do you want to sacrifice that and get, what would it be? Like what, 66-cent Pulse chain hex and 66-cent hex on Ethereum, and then have to deal with Ethereum fees? If people migrate, I don't know. The community has to decide that one. But yeah, that's just my theory behind it. So hopefully. All right, I'm gonna go. Sorry for wasting everyone's time. If don't agree or doesn't make sense or whatever, but that's personally what I think. I think if you wanted to, EX, PX, someone could probably make that happen pretty easy. And if they're not doing it, or they don't know how to do it, maybe that's just help them along. All right, so free speech, signing out, still here as we encroach the 2,000 days of HEX, flawless action. And when we get that God candle, whether it be on Ethereum HEX or Pulse Chain HEX or Pulse Chain or Pulse X or INC, when we see that God candle, well, maybe we might get the street. Maybe he's in closing, complete conspiracy. Maybe we see $1 hex this year, and we get a Richard Hart live stream, because I'm pretty sure he said he would go live and light these green candles. Although we could get it like a fucking an X post or something. Just absolutely troll everyone, like a thumb, like here you go, everybody. This fucking candle. That's it. But yeah.